Hi, this is Donna Taggert, the Dietitian for Department of Aging and Human Services. This month we're going to be talking about nutrition facts labels. Prior to November of 1990, no labels at all. So you were on your own. You had to be a detective to figure out what was in your foods. But in November of 1990, the Nutrition and Education Act was signed into law, and the first label appeared in 1994 in May. And it's pretty much stayed the same. It has been updated in 2016 by the FDA, and they've hopefully tried to make it easier and better for you to make good food choices. So I'm going to talk a little bit about a label. You'll see it on the side screen from this little Belvita Crunchy Breakfast Biscuits, and I'll refer to the bigger label a little bit further on. So they did update the label, so it's basically the same, but a few things have changed, and one of them was the serving size. They wanted to make it bolder, bigger, so you could see it, because honestly, people were not eating the serving size. Now this particular item has 5 servings in this container, and the serving size is 1 pack. So that's easier than some things, 4 biscuits in the pack. But for instance, if I had eaten all 5 of those packages in this container, I would have had to multiply 5 times all this information. This is all based on the 1 serving size. The other thing they made bold and easy to read was calories. They really want you to know how many calories are there, because there's such a rising tide for obesity in our country. So they wanted you to know this is the calories for 1 serving. The calories are based on, there's a footnote at the bottom, 2,000 calories per day. That may or may not be what you need. You can go on myplate.gov and plug in your height, your weight, your age, your sex, your physical activity. All these things determine how many calories a day you should have, and you could get perhaps a more accurate thing. So if you're not around 2,000 calories, this is again based on that assumption. The calories from fat has been eliminated, and the main reason that was eliminated from this label is it's really not the calories from fat that matter, it's the type of fat. So this has 8 grams of total fat. We want to eat more polyunsaturated fats, less saturated fats, less trans fats. So they have listed here saturated fat 1.5, trans fat 0. So 8 does not equal 1.5. So the difference between that is how much polyunsaturated fat is in it. The trans fats say 0. By law, it can have up to 0.49 grams of trans fats in the item and still be 0. Most manufacturers have really worked hard to get trans fats out, because it came out that they were really bad for our heart. So most things don't have trans fats, but if you're worried and you want to know how much is in, or know that there is one even if it's 0, you look on the ingredient label. The ingredient label will list in descending order of weight what's in it. Look for the word partially hydrogenated fat. This only had canola oil in it, so it's good. It truly has 0 trans fats, but that's something to look for, because we really shouldn't be getting any trans fats. More than 2 grams a day is really harmful for our health. So if you have a whole bunch of those little hidden trans fats that are saying 0 but they're not, you want to be careful with that. Cholesterol is 0 on this. Here's another thing on the label that's important to look at is sodium. This has 160 milligrams. What's considered a low sodium food is 140. So this isn't too bad for sodium. Total carbohydrates, 36 grams. This is for especially people who have to watch their carbohydrates. People with diabetes, they might be having to give themselves insulin based on the amount of carbohydrates they're eating. So this is a very, very important tool for them. Underneath is dietary fiber. Not many foods have a huge amount of fiber, but if it has more than 5 or more grams of fiber, you can subtract that number off the total carbohydrate for diabetes purposes, because fiber kind of blunts that rise in the blood sugars. Total sugars, 11 grams. Now before the updated label, that's all that was there. You didn't know if the total sugar was the lactose sugar in milk, the fructose sugar in fruits, or was it the added sugar that manufacturer was putting in. You had to be a detective and look on the label and look for anything that looked remotely like it was a sugar, and then you still didn't know how much. Now they have added the term added sugars. It's wonderful, because now you don't have to guess. You know exactly this has 11 grams. Out of the total sugars, 11 grams is added sugar. So that's saying to me, all of this added sugar All the sugar is coming from added sugar. The American Heart Association says that you should have no more than 6 teaspoons a day if you're a woman, 9 teaspoons if you're a man. And how do you know what that is? Well, 4 grams of added sugar equals 1 teaspoon. This has 11, so it's almost 3 teaspoons. 11 divided by 4, almost 3 teaspoons of added sugar. If you're a woman who's supposed to try to stick to 6, that's almost half your amount, and you're just starting out with breakfast. So you want to be very mindful, aware of what things have added sugar. Look for ones that have fairly low amounts of added sugar. The total sugar can be a little, like milk has 12 grams of sugar. None of it is added sugar. So you have to look at those labels and decide, how much is going in sugar-wise and how much is just naturally there. Proteins listed, this just says 4 grams. Average 25 grams, 30 grams of protein per meal for us seniors. This is pretty low. If this is your breakfast, you're not getting much protein, so you might want to look for something, add something else that's going to bring protein. A hard-boiled egg, a glass of milk, going to bring you some added nutrition. Underneath this part are 4 nutrients that we get way too little of. They're listed: vitamin D, iron, potassium, and calcium. And these are crucial. Every label has to have those to tell you how much. Then after that, everything else is like manufacturers like, look, I have this in mind, da 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 da. But those 4 have to be listed. They took off vitamins A, vitamin C. There's no deficiency really in our country with that. So those are off the label. So that's important to look at that and see how much you're getting of those. If you look on the thing, it has percentage daily value. These are telling you how much that nutrient is bringing to that particular food in relationship to how much you need. The daily value is 5% or less, it's low. If it's 20% or higher, it's high. So that may be good, it may not. If it's a food you want lots of, more of course the higher is better, but if it's a food you don't want a lot of, so we'll see that more in the label we're going to look at in more detail. Okay, so let's pull up that label. Let's pretend that we're going to the store. I'm going to the store. I want some frozen dinner. I'm, being lazy. I just need to pop something in my microwave. Kind of feeling like lasagna. This is a label for frozen lasagna. So, first thing I look at is it says 4 servings per container. Well, it's just me going to be eating it. Am I going to be okay just eating the serving size of 1 cup, or am I going to eat the whole thing? If I think I have no willpower, maybe I should look for a single serve thing, put that aside. But I'm going to go with this. I'm going to say I'm going to be good. I'm going to measure out. I'm going to cut it in 4ths and just eat my 4th and save the rest for other meals. Okay, so I look at it. The calories are 280. That's a little low for a meal. I'm going to probably add some other things with this meal because you want to have about 500 calories per meal. Otherwise, you're going to be hungry in an hour and maybe you might eat something not so good for you. So anyway, I look down. This is going to have a lot of fat. It's lasagna. It's got cheeses. It's got eggs. So the saturated fat is a little bit higher than it should be at 23%. But here's the thing. If I know I'm going to have this, I could be careful with things I choose throughout the rest of the day. So that might not be an issue for me. Cholesterol is low in it. Here's the biggie, sodium. Most frozen foods, frozen meals, pretty high in sodium. I know that coming in. So I try to look for things around 600 milligrams or under for a frozen meal. But if I really want this lasagna, I just got a hankering for it and I don't feel like making my own, then maybe I would go with this and really make sure the rest of my day is a lot lower in sodium foods. Total carbohydrate, pretty good. Fiber, not bad for a lasagna. Total sugar, 6 grams and 0 grams of added sugar. So that's good. No added sugar. The 6 grams is probably coming from the dairy. Again, that's in that lasagna. Protein, 15 grams. Not quite high enough. I want to be up closer to 25 grams. So I would probably myself add a glass of milk, get some more calcium, get some protein from the milk. It would bump it up to 23 grams of protein, get some potassium, magnesium, some other things, phosphorus that come from that milk. So I think I would do that. The vitamin D is 0. Not surprised. It's hard to get vitamin D from foods. Most of our vitamin D comes from the sunshine or a supplement because foods are very low in vitamin D. calcium is very decent. It's 25%. So that's a decent serving of calcium. And why? Because of the dairy in it. If I add a cup of milk to go along with that meal, I really bumped my calcium up to almost half of what I need for the day. And potassium is low, but if I add a salad for this lasagna when I get home, make a nice salad, I could really bump the potassium, and there's also potassium in milk. So again, I'm not too worried about that. So my opinion would be that, yeah, I think I'd go with this. I really felt like having some lasagna, but I would be very careful with what I'm eating the rest of the day or the next day as far as sodium and saturated fats. So the daily value, you see that on the side. Things that are high are over 20%. Things that are low are less than 5. The saturated fat, we didn't want it to be high, so that was not a good one to be high. Sodium, we didn't want to be high, but the calcium we did, so that was good. The low ones, again, vitamin D was low, but the added sugar was low. So that's how you kind of use those daily values as in a comparison. You know, what can be higher, what should be higher, what should be lower, and try to make some choices of other foods to go along with that you know will boost whatever you're looking for. And as far as the ingredient list, this does not have ingredient list listed, but it's always in weight of descending order. So if you see, like for instance, this Belvita crunchy thing we had, the first ingredient was whole grain wheat flour. So that's a good thing. When you see whole grain as the first ingredient, you know it's going to have a decent amount of whole grains in it. Again, if you see things that are weird looking, scary looking on ingredient lists, they may not necessarily be bad for you. And if they're there, the FDA has said they're safe to be there. But anyway, here's some technical terms that sound sometimes a little scary. Ergocalciferol, that's vitamin D. Cyanocobalamin, B12. Docosahexachloric acid, what's that? Sounds not good. Omega-3s, like from fatty fishes. Scorbic acid, that's common. That's vitamin C. So a lot of times things that sound like, oh my gosh, I don't think I want to be eating this, sometimes it's not. But we'll post 2 websites that you can check if you're really concerned about something. Look it up. bestfoodsfacts.org. It's a nonprofit. They basically provide information on, so you can learn about the food. You can make your decision if you think that food is something you want to take in. They do not lobby. They do not advocate for industries or brands. So they are very neutral. They're not going to be pushing something on you. The other is PubChem. It's a very detailed. It's, you know, every individual and item, ingredient, and what's in it, and what, you know, could possibly, you know, come from that. So that's a really scientific one if you want to really get technical. But I'm going to give you an example. I've been pushing prunes a lot, bone health, lots of good studies out there saying how it's helping menopausal ladies with bone health, heart health, brain health, and it has, most prunes have potassium sorbate in them. Well, is that okay? Well, first of all, the FDA has deemed it as safe to be there. It's tasteless, it's odorless, it doesn't accumulate in the body, it turns into carbon dioxide, we breathe it off, and water. But it helps protect some nasty bugs, like it's in, potassium sorbate is in jerky, so you don't get salmonella from it. It's in prunes because prunes are so moist, they tend to grow mold on them if you're not careful. So they're there as a protection, and they're safe and have been studied to be safe. But very rarely there could be a potential allergic reaction, and if you have something like that, then obviously you would want to avoid it. But again, most things that you see, they may sound like they're not good, but you know, you can do research, you can make that decision for yourself, and like I would decide, I'm okay with that, whatever. So, you know, that is up to you. So there's lots of things you can get from nutrition facts labels. You think, oh my gosh, it'll take forever when I'm in the grocery store. You need your reading glasses and all. But once you figure out your favorite foods and what you're buying and stuff, it's not so hard. But they really are a wonderful tool to help decide, should I get this food, or maybe look for something else similar, or maybe even a different manufacturer, because sometimes they put less of things in. You know, I find that with sodium. I find that certain companies put more sodium, same item, than others. So you just have to do some comparison and put on your detective hat at times, but at least the food fact label has made it a whole lot easier to figure out what's in our food. Prior to 1990, you were on your own. So I hope you can come out and join me at the centers. I'll be going in much more detail with these things, and you can ask questions and stuff like that. But if not, I'll see you back here next month. Bye.